Can the Cincinnati Bengals get back to the postseason in 2025? We're exploring the state of the roster today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, happy trails to Frank Ragnow. Salute to him.
Salute.
Retirement. Happy trails, Tron Armstead. Bad day for former All-Pro, Pro Bowl offensive lineman yesterday. A couple of formal retirements.
That's a good call. We lost Zach Martin this year too.
Yeah.
Some big-time pillars of the offense.
We are another guard and tackle away from an all-time great retired this year offensive line starting five.
What if Tyron Smith could add to the list, right? If he were to hang it up.
Protect him at all costs.
That's our tackle. I wonder what guard.
Another guard?
Petonio, maybe?
No. He won't play. He got that lump sum in March.
Zeitler got that nice deal for Tennessee. I don't know. This might be it. We're getting it where it's June, you know. The retirement should be slowing down, right?
In theory, but the team we're going to look at today got some infusion of young players. Oh, David Andrews also retired. So could we put Ragnow at guard?
Yeah, we can. He's played some guard, right? Now we got options. Good call on David Andrews. Yeah.
Now we just need one. I don't really think it matters who it is.
You're gonna have a heck of an offensive line.
Any guard or any tackle, just throw them out there.
Yeah. In good shape.
We're looking at the Bengals, whose offensive line, I was it over the weekend, the end of last week, was in the spotlight for their pass protection rates, and they obviously infused a couple of draft picks into this group and have some young players. So we're talking about the Bengals offensive line in addition to the rest of the roster. This is our second stop along the way of our AFC North roster assessment series as we're working our way through the entirety of the league, putting quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary into roster cornerstones, quality starters, sufficient level starters, quality depth players, replacement level players, incomplete evaluations, rookies, practice squad caliber players, and non-NFL roster caliber players to quantify the caliber of everybody's roster going into the 2025 season.
That's right. I mean, we will talk back seven, trenches, but we start with the skill players around Mr. Joe Burrow. And they got a couple of really good receivers in Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. Kyle, have you taken a look at the first 4 years of Jamar Chase's career? We're off to a heck of a start, man. 100 catches every year.
Hefty amount of receiving yards.
Yeah, unbelievable football player. One of the, best 2 or 3 receivers in the NFL. You can argue amongst yourself. He's a tier 1 NFL wide receiver. Tee Higgins is a heck of a running mate. And then really the third option in this passing game has become Mike Gesicki, who just kind of works with Joe Burrow. Gesicki's not going to be a do-everything tight end, but in the passing game, for a quarterback that has the ball placement of Joe Burrow, it's really maximized with Gesicki in the ball skills that he has. And so that's become your number 3. Andre Eusevis, entering his third season, got some run last year, a little bit of production, has some height, weight, speed dynamics down the field. We'll see about Jermaine Burton, obviously very skilled, but
get that head on straight, please.
I don't know, man. I'm nervous about that.
I'm not going to hold my breath, but the talent is so obvious.
Right.
I'm not holding my breath.
And that's the thing about these. This team throws the ball a ton, right? Joe Burrow's going to push for 650, 675 passing attempts every single year. We know 170 of those are going to Jamar Chase, well over 100 to Tee Higgins. But there's targets, right? Gesicki's gobbled up some, Eusevis has gobbled up some, but I think it'd be nice for them to be able to rely on a Jermaine Burton as a number 4 actual receiver. because we know that there's going to be a volume component to this passing offense. That's how they play ball. So I'm a little concerned about the depth, but I mean, obviously Chase and Higgins is as good of a 1-2 as you're going to find in the league.
I think you have enough appealing upside plays that it'll at least be interesting. Like I'm not going to sit here and say they're hollow with depth, right? Like it could be Jermaine Burton for a spurt. Yusevich has flashed a good bit for us. Charlie Jones was a 4th round pick as well, just 2 years ago. So who steps up from that? The most talented one is Jermaine Burton. Obviously, he's also the most troubled. So talent and trouble is going to earn you a little bit more leash than if you just were trouble. But those guys that are consistent and reliable, I would not be surprised if one of them ends up emerging because the talent is also present in other places. I'm pleased to report I don't think we're going to fight about the Mike Gesicki classification this year. I have him down as a sufficient level starter.
Yeah, it's a good spot for him. That's where I have him as well.
In this scheme, as you mentioned, it's funny. His evolution just when he was in Miami, it was, well, somebody has to catch the ball, right? And it was Mike. He's a big body over the middle of the field and big catch radius and good hands. And now with all of the spacing that this team implements and the stress that they put outside the numbers and Mike being able to get up on the seam and run those crossers where you like playing big bodied ball with Chase and Higgins down the field and outside. And I thought that was the big blockade with Mike when he was in 22 on the franchise tag in Miami was his best routes are these crossers and these special routes across the middle of the field. And you kind of want the Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle guys running those routes because of the explosive play element and what they can do with the ball in their hands. So I think it's a perfect arrangement of scheme and complementary talent. And he's in a complementary role now instead of being a marquee player. And I think it has him in a great place specifically within the confines of this scheme to be a reliable third option and I won't say replace Tyler Boyd, right? Because that's apples to oranges, but the Tyler Boyd vacancy was kind of a question mark. And those targets going here has served as a solution for that. But it does make them even more pass game reliable. Yeah. Because if you're going to play 11 personnel and Mike's your tight end, you're throwing the football.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. This is and has been a pro Heisman Trophy snub Chase Brown podcast, and it was cool to see him get the opportunity with, of course, the team moving on from Joe Mixon, and they retool with Chase Brown and Zach Moss, and Chase Brown becomes kind of the guy, right? And guy that can catch the football, handled the workload, obviously late season injury, but I think he showed us enough that you think, wow, we got a starter here, and one that I think complements the style of play that Cincinnati wants to run. This isn't, you look at a lot of teams out there in the NFL that have made investments in running backs. And for a lot of those teams, it makes a lot of sense. Baltimore, Philadelphia, the 49ers, Green Bay. Not for Cincinnati, right? This is a high volume passing offense that's going to sprinkle in the run. And I think a back like Chase Brown on a rookie deal that has a multifaceted skill set makes sense to me for how they want to play offense. And then you kind of, with the depth, you have Samaje Perine and Zach Moss, who are, big, physical, can help you in short yardage, which is important. And so not a lot invested in this backfield, but it kind of stacks up appropriately to me.
And Chase Brown, he's not a small back either, right? Like he's about 210, right? Yeah. So, but there's an explosive play element to him that you don't have with Moss or P. Ryan or even Taj Brooks, who's a day 3 pick this year, who kind of has that same physicality. And I think you need backs that have the physical element when you're going to be a team that doesn't provide a lot of large blocking surfaces with consistency. And part of what makes Joe Burrow special is the field vision and the processing. And that's at its best in Cincinnati when you spread things out. Yeah. And when you spread things out, that means, the numbers game that's in the box is a little bit more amplified if you're -1 in the box from a blocking surface perspective, which means that back has to be able to either make that guy miss in the hole or make the contact and then fall forward to make sure that we're staying on schedule offensively. And that's kind of what I consider the running game in Cincinnati to be all about, with the bonus with Chase Brown being the separator for him versus the other guys being he has the explosive play elements to his game, which is why I have him already going into year 3 as a sufficient level starter.
Same here. All right, plenty to dive into when it comes to the O-line and D-line here in Cincinnati. We'll get into that here next. Be sure to stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And you can post your job, and it's made easy for you because LinkedIn has a new feature that helps you write job descriptions. Then you can quickly get your job in front of the right people and get those deep candidate insights. And here's a tip for you. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture. That'll double your reach to get those qualified candidates. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so going to the trenches here in Cincinnati, where a couple of new faces infused with Dylan Fairchild with a 3rd-round draft choice and Jalen Rivers to kind of go around a marquee investment that they had in 2024 with Amarius Mims. Ted Karras has kind of been the consistent staple, and then this team is still paying handsome money to Orlando Brown Jr. to serve as the left tackle here as well. So I think it's a really interesting, Joe, combination of skills and experience levels and financial price points. And you parlay that with, they brought back Cody Ford, who played some snaps, and Cordell Volson was a draft pick that flashed early, but seems like he's kind of a point of focus of trying to improve that spot on the roster. So you can't say Cincinnati hasn't made investments and tried to figure this out between paying Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims as a 1st-round pick last year and now drafting 2 offensive linemen in this year's class. When you play the game the way that Cincinnati plays offensively, you're going to be a unit that's more stressed than a lot of other units across the league, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of pure drop back passing, right? Get the ball out. For this offensive line, I really hope we have a wide open competition for the guard spots. So you look at Volson as he's been a 3-year starter for this team. I think he's been kind of capped in terms of development. We haven't seen a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Kind of hold your head above water, but not really an asset to me. But between Cordell Volson, Lucas Patrick, who's been kind of a super sub for his entire career, you love having that guy as a 6th offensive lineman. You bring back Cody Ford, who's got some time with your team. I don't think he's played well, but he's experienced with your team. Mm-hmm. And then, to me, the real X factor here is Dylan Fairchild. That Georgia middle 3 last year of Ratledge, Fairchild, and Wilson. Ratledge was the best prospect. Wilson had the highest ceiling, but my favorite one was Fairchild. I love the way he plays, man. This guy gets after people, and I think he can be a tone setter. And I'm hoping that he can be a rookie starter for them because, man, him and Mims give you the ceiling. I think if you're looking for ceiling for this offensive line, it's Fairchild and Mims. And obviously we have a lot to learn about Mims. Unbelievably talented, but still, now that he's even had a year under his belt in the NFL, still a guy that's missing reps, right? To physical upsides off the charts. He hasn't played much. And so I think that'd be a big win for Cincy. If Mims and Fairchild can be answers for you, I think that's going to go a long way in this offensive line kind of stabilizing because I think they've been okay, but there hasn't been a lot of ceiling. I see ceiling now in Mims and Fairchild.
Let me ask you a question. Which player can the Bengals least afford to lose for an extended period of time to injury?
Man, I don't think much of Orlando Brown, but it might be him.
Right, because now you're banking on a player potentially Is Jalen Rivers, is he truly the swing tackle who I think he's also better suited to play inside at the NFL level? I think either one of the tackles, like the tackle depth is really concerning to me.
Yeah, we need to Cochran. I mean, his size, right, out of Georgia Tech, but what do we know about him? Jackson Kirkland, maybe, but these guys, there's not a lot of run here to point to.
Yeah. So I think they have a lot of really appealing options to win the competition inside. But whoever doesn't win the competition, if you tell me you have to play swing tackle or you have to play tackle for a stretch of time for Cincinnati, I would be very apprehensive.
Which is what Cody Ford had to do last year for Orlando Brown. He played a lot of left tackle, and that wasn't good.
And
they brought him back, though. They gave him a decent deal, right? Like was a 2-year, $6 million?
He's a guy who can play inside, outside, and now knows his teammates and
valuable snap takers,
played outside
man.
a tackle, and I don't want to diminish, like, as a team who's as a fan of a team who's dealing with players not being on the same page or not being on board with what the team needs you to do. I have a unique appreciation right now for he's a good teammate. He's selfless. He'll go out there and play not his best position because you need him to, even if the product's not very good. But if the product's not very good, then it only goes so far, right? Yeah. And I look at what the Bengals have on their offensive line. Mims, I have an incomplete evaluation. Karras I have as a sufficient level starter. Brown I have as a sufficient level starter. Lucas Patrick I have as quality depth. Cody Ford I have as a replacement level player. Cordell Olson as a replacement level player. And then you have the rookies, the unknowns.
The only thing different in terms of scoring is I had Volson as quality depth. I want to give him some level of credit for being a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
Where, like, I don't love him as a starter, but if he was first in off the bench, I think I'd be okay there. I don't know if he has position flex, though, which as a quality depth player, that's a bit of a knock. You can't be a guard-only backup, right? That's
right. And I guess I kind of lean into replacement level because we signed Lucas Patrick and drafted 2 guards.
Yeah, it's fair.
So, defensive line?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you have to start with Trey Hendrickson.
Pay the man.
I'm not confident that there's a resolution here, but he's your best defensive player by far. Like, by far. And without him, and not only is he one of your best defensive players, he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. But
sack
without him
last year.
Yeah, sack leader. He's had 17 sacks the last 2 years, man.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, you're counting on a lot of unknown variables. Now, you have a first-round pick invested in Myles Murphy, but what have we learned about him? Not much. Shamar Stewart, we can't even get that rookie deal taken care of for a guy that needs time on task, right, with the unbelievable physical upside, but needs to develop his game. Joseph Asai has been flashy, but probably more of a third edge than a 1 or 2. Cam Sample back off injury, who I like, but back off injury, you never know exactly how guys are. Like, this room looks very different on the edge with and without Trey Hendrickson. And then, of course, Sam Hubbard is a guy that retired this offseason. Not that he was like a high-impact player, but he gave you some level of a floor that right now doesn't really exist.
You'd have felt really good about 600 snaps from Sam Hubbard this year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the good news is I like some of what we have cooking on the inside between TJ Slayton and bringing him in on a free agent deal and pairing him with BJ Hill with young name like Chris Jenkins, who I know you were a really big fan of coming out of the draft. I think you were a little higher than I was. I like Chris. And I think year 2, the hope / I guess what you're banking on is these young guys taking leaps. But the concern is how many of the young guys that you look up and down the depth chart have had consistent development, and that's before you consider there's a scheme change this year.
Yeah. It's a fair question.
They have, and McKinley Jackson was a 3rd-round draft choice, right? He's going to have to play, and you got to get a chance to play meaningful. I really liked Howard Cross, who they got as a UDFA out of Notre Dame. I think he's a fun, undersized pass rush kind of guy. Would not be surprised if he makes the team. I frankly think he's right now a better pass rusher than everybody the Bengals have on the interior other than maybe Chris Jenkins. the college tape last year at Notre Dame. Like he can get after the passer a little bit. So I have my eyes on him to maybe make the roster as a UDFA for Cincinnati, but a lot of stout physicality with Slayton and Hill and McKinley with NFL strength and conditioning to kind of sturdy his body up a little bit. So I like that element. Plus Shamar Stewart and Chris Jenkins as guys who could play over top of tackles if you want them to. Obviously, they got to get the Stewart contract done. But yes, to your point, this is Trey Hendrickson and then a void before you get to kind of the next group of players from a positional or an individual player categorization standpoint. Is a cornerstone versus I think BJ Hill's a sufficient level starter. I think TJ Slayton can be a sufficient level starter. He didn't really get that opportunity in abundance in Green Bay, but they're obviously paying him like they feel he can be that kind of player.
Yeah. Well, I think Slayton, his impact on a really good defense in Green Bay, I think is where I get encouragement for what he could be in Cincy. So to sum up the D-line, it's get this figured out with Trey Hendrickson, and then it's all about development from recent first and second and third round picks.
Top 100 picks. Yeah,
you got it. Got to have it. Got to have it this year. All right, the secondary, back seven as well. We'll talk about that here on the other side of it. Some familiar names and some growth needed there as well. We'll break it down here in just a moment. Be sure to stick with us.
Bengals have set the table for the next era off the ball.
Yeah, Kyle, I mean, they went into this offseason firmly feeling like they needed to restore their linebacker depth, right? I mean, you pay Oren Brooks, not a huge deal, but 2 years, $5 million to be a depth linebacker. And then you draft Demetrius Knight in the second round, and Barrett Carter was a fourth round pick.
Yes.
After Keem Davis-Gaither played a ton last year.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot where he went. He left in free agency.
Oh, I was just looking at it. I'll find it.
That's very deliberate, right? Very deliberate. As Jermaine Pratt has a outstanding trade request. I don't know where that's at.
He's Arizona.
I thought that's where it was, Arizona. Yeah. And then Logan Wilson, it's been the Wilson and Pratt show for a long time. But it certainly feels like they're gearing up for life after that.
Yeah. And I really like Demetrius Knight. I think him behind a very sturdy defensive interior that we just got done complimenting. And then I think the floor's higher with some of the guys, their depth guys on the edge as far as run defense as well. I think it gives you a chance to be really stiff up the middle. But do you stick with Pratt amidst his trade request earlier this offseason? How does that all shake out? I think it'll be really interesting to see once the chips are down and we start playing games this season, how quickly Knight earns an opportunity. I think Carter's a nice day three bet on somebody who has some tools that could be Jermaine Pratty when it's all said and done. But obviously that leap has to happen. Knight's a little bit of a different style player, which I like for them. How did you grade the two guys at the top? I had Pratt, sufficient level starter, and I had Logan Wilson. I seesawed between quality starter and sufficient level starter there.
I gave them both sufficient level starter grades. Okay. Burks quality depth and then two rookies. Yep.
I think Burks will be a really good special teams guy for them too.
Dax Hill, another year, another new position. We're going to the slot this year. I've never known less about a first round pick that's played reasonably in 3 years than Dax Hill, right?
It's the curse of versatility, right?
Honestly, you kind of knew this guy could play the slot. This guy could play the nickel or outside. He could play deep alignments, and we'll try 1 year at a time. We'll roll through them all. But obviously, a big opportunity for him in the slot this year. Cam
Good
Taylor
luck replacing Mike Hilton, though.
Yeah,
and I know it's late stage Mike Hilton, but Mike Hilton still was one of the better nickels
he's a dog
in football.
Cam Taylor-Britt, presumably the top outside corner. has his moments for sure, right? There's times I really like Cam. He's a physical player. There's times where he gets kind of worked in coverage. I have him as a sufficient level starter. And then opposite of him, it's Josh Newton versus DJ Turner as a couple of recent picks that I think those guys have both individually had their moments where I've liked what I've seen. But, for Cincy, I think they're hopeful that one guy really claims it and becomes an answer opposite of Cam Taylor-Britt. And if I'm not mistaken, is this year 4 for Cam Taylor-Britt? So
he's 22. So this is coming into year 4 for him.
So it's contract year for him. So big year for Cam. And then, maybe you bring him back. Maybe you don't. Maybe your future tandem is Newton and Turner. But I think we'll get clarity on Newton and Turner this year. Who I think, again, both individually have had their moments for sure.
Yeah, it's that same trend that we just got done talking about with the defensive line. I mean, these are second, third round picks.
Yep.
And you're looking for a leap, and you're looking for guys who should have every bit of motivation to kind of seize a top spot on the depth chart and kind of become the man. And it's been Cam to this point in time. But as you said, there has been a consistency element there that prevents you from wanting to really lean into. He's really linear. He's got great linear speed. He's got great physicality. He's got the right demeanor. It's just been the consistency on a snap-by-snap basis. I think the safety room's really interesting, Joe, when you consider how much they had that really well-established group of guys, and then they let them all go, but then they brought Von Bell back, and now Von Bell's gone again, and Geno Stone and Jordan Battle as a third-round pick, kind of pegged as the top 2 guys. Tyson Anderson is one of those big safeties who can kind of blur the lines a little bit with
special teams guy, though. Really, that's what Tyson Anderson's become, right?
But if you ask me who the third safety is, and if you played 3 safeties, who it was going to be,
I think it would be Dax Hill, and then
But the third designated safety right now would be Tyson Anderson.
Yeah. Jordan Battle, I thought he had a really good rookie season. I don't necessarily believe he took a step in year 2, but obviously year 3. Hopefully, generally, things can be more stable around him. I think that's an important part of where his career can go is all right, we're stable. We're going to get a good evaluation opportunity for him to see what the ceiling is. But he was a third-round pick, right? So
yes,
it's another. That's what Cincinnati's doing. They're leaning into a lot of players that they recently drafted in the top 3 rounds and saying, "Go be the player we've asked you to be. We drafted you to be." Right.
Well, and this is part of how this team has operated. Right. This is especially now that Joe Burrow held the team's feet to the fire and said, "Hey, I'm going to gaslight you guys publicly until you start paying my guys." And they did that. And the blowback from that is,
well, you better score 40 points a game.
But also, okay, we paid the nucleus around Joe, so we're going to really rely on draft and develop and cross-control talent. And they're putting a lot of, I don't want to say extra pressure because there's pressure on every front office to do that, but the misses will be more amplified.
Yeah.
In an environment like this, where it's so profound and so much of the roster is, and we drafted you 3 years ago. It's go time. Time to grow up.
I know that we will tackle quarterbacks in a separate conversation, but I would like to say something about Joe Burrow because I think the world of him.
Okay.
I'll say this, and I don't think this is a hot take. I think this is absolute truth. There's not a quarterback in the NFL that executes the passing game at a higher level than Joe Burrow. Processing, decision-making, accuracy, he's the best.
Guys get separation. Guys are in tight coverage, so I got to throw a leveraged ball away from coverage.
It's unbelievable.
And you got guys that play that style on the outside, and it helps make your life easier to do that. But he's got all the clubs in the bag, right?
Yeah. And that's, to me, I've got questions, right, about this team, offensive line questions, defensive line, back 7. I have questions everywhere. But the reason I think highly of Cincinnati is rooted in their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think the world of Joe Burrow, and they hadn't made the playoffs the last 2 years, and I think there's a lot of context baked into that with Burrow's injuries early in the season and missing all the time, and then defensively the problems that they've had. But Joe Burrow is an absolute dude, and despite the questions that I have about the remainder of team here, or I guess remainder of team that's not Burrow, Higgins, and Chase, I think this he makes this a dangerous football team.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to play. Nobody. I mean, they hadn't been in the playoffs the last 2 years, but as a fan of an opposing team, I don't want to deal with them because of that quarterback.
It gives you a chance every single game, right? Is there an assistant coach hire this year that's more important than Al Gold? And we'll do coaching staffs individually as well, just like we'll do quarterbacks when we're done all the rosters. But it's just I look at what they have and all the young players with a change on top of it.
Yeah.
And Al Golden has a chance to really make a statement in 2025 with the job that he does with this group.
He does. I think that's a great call out. Al Golden can coach out of his mind. And I think there's probably a cap ceiling on this team, but defensively at least. But if he can get this to a league average defense, I think that'd be huge with what I think this team's capable of doing throwing the football.
Oh, and then league average defense with this throwing the ball is probably 11 or 12 win team.
That's a good football team. Yeah. That nobody's going to want to play in the postseason. Yeah.
So there you go. That's going to do it for us with the Bengals. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. Appreciate you guys for checking out the latest installment of Locked On NFL Scouting. Tomorrow, we're doing the playoff Pittsburgh Steelers.
Playoff Pittsburgh, baby.
Will they have their starting quarterback on the roster when we do our assessment tomorrow?
They're on the clock. They have 24 hours.
We'll find out. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. Hope to see you then. That's going to do it for us here today on the show. We are out of here.